Yeah, that's crazy. So the question was about all of that and why Benjamin Netanyahu's dog walking your administration. Like that question already has that answer in it because like that's been the talking point for 12 months. So why not? Why hasn't that happened yet? Stupid.
In military aid. And yet, Prime Minister Netanyahu seems to be charting his own course. The Biden-Harris administration has pressed him to agree to a ceasefire. He's resisted. You urged him not to go into Lebanon. He went in anyway. He has promised to make Iran pay for.
I recently told a lib I know that Netanyahu is a Holocaust revisionist who's been doing the whole both sides, but Israel's a safe home for Jews thing. And she was actually too stunned to argue. Yeah, no, tell him about how Benjamin Netanyahu was regularly criticized by like Jewish scholars for claiming that Hitler didn't want to kill the Jews until he spoke to the Palestinian Grand Mufti. Like, I mean, that was years ago too. It's not like new. Expect to see major turf energy come from the Dems in 2025. Is Starmerism from now on? Oh, for sure. For sure. I do genuinely believe that, which is so funny when people are like, well, Hasan, I'm trans, and a trans is going to happen if Donald Trump becomes president. It's like, first of all, Republicans have been doing Olympic levels of anti-trans legislation making at the state level under the Biden administration with seemingly no response from the Democrats at all for some federal protections on the matter. So I don't know what makes you think that like what makes you think that this party that is completely cast aside, regardless of how electorally beneficial it may be, completely cast aside like Arab voters, Muslim voters, people who care about not doing permanent in the Middle East, is not going to drop you like a bad habit when they haven't even made any like aesthetic or optical assurances that they normally engage with, you know? You're already written off. You're oblivious to it, in my opinion.
The missile attack, and that has the potential of expanding the. Does no sway over Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I mean, we do. We have all the sway over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, just like we have all the sway over the top of the hour ad break. But people refuse to recognize that at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break, and they also simultaneously refuse to recognize that you can avoid said ad break by subscribing, okay, for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime. It's very frustrating. It's that simple. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Yeah, Ben Shapiro was there too. I know. I saw. What a photo, man. What a crazy photo. Donald Trump, man. He truly is the guy. He is Himothy. Rooster Goose, thank you for the 5 tier 1 gifted subs. He is him. He is Himothy. This one looks Muslim. The 2 most pro-Israel musical theater lovers in one photo. True. I didn't even think about that. Oh my God, Donald Trump. Nah, Donald Trump is also too much of a musical theater lover to actually watch the Ben Shapiro musical theater and give it high marks. Like, he would probably get out of that and be like, this sucked. It's no Phantom of the Opera. Now that's when the musical theater was at its peak. Hold on. This is craziness.
The aid that we have given Israel allowed Israel to defend itself against 200 ballistic missiles that were just meant to attack the Israelis and the people of Israel. And when we think about the threat that Hamas, Hezbollah presents, Iran, I think that it is, without any question, our imperative to do what we can to allow Israel to defend itself against those kinds of attacks.
The full 60 Minutes interview airs in 1 hour on CBS. Can't wait. Can't wait to hear what kind of awful points of view she represents over and over again in like the least charismatic way possible. Jesus Christ.
Now, the work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around.
We knew that Kamala was going to be pretty much more of the same when it came to but did you think she'd be this incapable of doing the bare minimum? No, I did not. I thought that like with the Tim Walz pick, I thought that there was like a brief sliver of hope where she would at least like aesthetically try to separate herself from the Biden administration. I did not realize she was going to be like literally cookie cutter NPC level, repeating the same talking points since the DNC, since even before the DNC, really. It is shocking. It is shocking how bad she is because like, she's somehow even worse than my low ass expectations. Like, it is genuinely surprising. Kind of a monkey's paw when people said anyone but Biden. Like, I'll keep it a $1.50. I think people that are still holding out hope are doing so because she's younger. That's it. She has spent every moment on the campaign trail since the swap out, basically destroying any kind of goodwill that she might have had. Initially, I thought anyone pointing to Doug being Jewish as a reason to doubt her was borderline. Now, I don't know what else would explain the tone-deaf hyper-Zionism. No, I don't think it's Doug. Doug is literally a non-entity in this relationship. I don't think it's Doug. I think she's just, again, regular cookie-cutter Democrat who's just like saying the lines over and over again. There's no thought behind those eyes. Yeah, Doug. If Doug was important, then Ella Emhoff would at least have somewhat of a say or some sway in this process. And we know Ella is like, you know, done fundraisers for UNRWA. And Ella Emhoff is Doug's daughter. For those of you who don't know, Kamala Harris's stepdaughter. There's no. Yeah, Doug is laying pipe and being like, yeah, you're gonna say M Israel Chai. Doug is a mean lover, dude. He ravages. No, dude. He is not. I don't think he's a responsible party in Kamala Harris repeating these NPCS talking points about Israel straight up. Yeah, this is a good point. Here it is. Wait, where this chatter actually had a really good point. She's 60 years old. Okay. Very few Americans that are that age are going to be like, let me take a nuanced position on Israel. Bro, she's 60. I don't know any 60-year-old American who doesn't prefer Israel to the scary Muslims. Sometimes it's that simple. Yeah, that usually is what it is. My mom, okay, guys, stop mentioning the outliers. Like, oh, what about Noam Chomsky? What about Norm Finkelstein? Like, I know, dude. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? Also, if you're pointing to your moms and dads, yeah, no, dude. How many conversations you most likely have with them since October 7 that slowly but surely got them to recognize right from wrong, okay? That's very different from, like, the average uninitiated, uninterested person who just watches TV and regurgitates whatever the talking points are from television, man.
And making clear our principles, which include the need for humanitarian aid, the need for this to end, the need for a deal to be done, which would release the hostages and create a ceasefire. And we're not going to stop in terms.
Yeah, that's crazy. So the question was about all of that and why Benjamin Netanyahu's dog walking your administration. Like, that question already has that answer in it. Because, like, that's been the talking point for 12 months. So why not? Why hasn't that happened yet? Didn't we watch this already? I mean, in some ways, yes. This is a new version of it, but it's literally the same talking points. So,
in terms of putting that pressure on Israel and in the region, including Arab leaders.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Yep.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done.
Say it. Say Israel has a right to defend itself again. Respectfully, its rhetoric like the left's calls to limit free speech under the guise of fighting misinformation, funding the sterilization and exploitation of children, teens, pandering to bureaucratic elites, and ongoing efforts to disregard the Second Amendment as if it wasn't intentionally included in the Constitution to protect our freedoms and guard against the tyranny that pushes me away from the left and towards the right. Dog, you just said a bunch of hysterical right-wing things and then said it's actually all of those, like, things that I have hallucinated the left is doing that has forced me to be right-wing. Just have some backbone, dingus. I stand loudly and proudly with my political opinions. Why the can't you? Why do right-wingers always have this, like, shame? You know? Investigate that a little bit. Maybe scratch the surface a little bit. Why do you feel a sense of shame that you can't just be like, I'm right-wing. I'm just right-wing. Old liberals used to be against like this. Do you want me to dissect everything that you said? I can do it quickly. Okay, the left's calls to limit free speech. There's never been a moment in this country where the left actually had free speech. Free speech has only been presented as a dynamic where right-wingers all the way to the Klan and Nazis and neo-Nazis can take advantage of that. Left-wingers have never actually had free speech. There are 32 states in this country where being pro-Palestine is literally illegal. You have to sign something in the state of Texas, for example, supposedly one of these big old hoorah free speech states where you have to literally sign a form to say you will never protest Israel, you will never boycott Israel, you will never engage in any actions in any peaceful demonstrations against the state of Israel. Does that sound like free speech to you? No, because you don't know anything. That's number one. Okay? It's illegal to be a communist. Taft-Hartley, we were talking about that recently, where having an ideological interest in communism meant that you could never actually be a union leader. Does that seem like free speech to you? Does that seem like it's the First Amendment? It absolutely is, but it doesn't matter. Okay. Number two, you said sterilization and exploitation of children. I suspect you're hallucinating a world in which like the left is doing like gender. They're doing gender. They're doing woke to the children. Maybe I missed these. Where does it say that in all the law? I think you miss a lot. Google 32 states BDS to find out more. Okay. I love that. Like, it is my job to look at this gish gallop of misinformation and dissect it piece by piece. And this doesn't have the decency to just Google something. At least do the fact checking in real time so that you can either A, come to the conclusion that I'm actually objectively correct, which I am, or B, come out with a counter that is reasonable, that you summarized as quickly as possible from said Googling expedition, that we can have a normal conversation. If you don't have this information, and I do, at least listen to what I have to say instead of being like, well, I might have missed this. Okay, be a little bit more open-minded, please. Okay, in terms of exploitation and sterilization of children, being pro-trans, does none of those things. It's actually, in my opinion, causes way more harm to trans kids. Okay, just like it did to gay kids when being gay was also considered in the same negative connotations as being trans, to not be able to come out and express your gender identity or your sexuality freely. Pandering to bureaucratic elites is correct. The Democrats are doing that. Don't know why you think the left is doing that. That's ridiculous. I don't think the left is inside of the scope of the Democratic Party. Nor do the Democrats give it about the left. As a matter of fact, this entire conversation with the Kamala Harris, my Kamala Harris criticisms actually greatly will summarize my position on how the Democrats do not give a shit about the left, or the bureaucratic elites do not actually give a about the left at all. That's just a word salad moment from you. And ongoing efforts to disregard the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is just a piece of paper. You are a delusional idiot if you think that in this country that seemingly is infinitely higher than every other OECD nation is not directly a consequence of our false interpretation of the Second Amendment, which is a relatively new interpretation of the Second Amendment, directly corresponding to manufacturers' material interests in readily selling to a market readily available. Okay, that's it. The Second Amendment interpretation that you take for granted now is completely new. It's a new interpretation of the Second Amendment. Control is an absolute necessity. Many countries that have more, than other comparable OECD nations have significantly less. Why? It's because they have control, reasonable control, safety measures. Okay, you should not be able to walk into a Walmart and be able to purchase. When you do that in a country where there are more than there are people in circulation, you end up with mass every weekend. You end up with school all the goddamn time. And then we turn around and we increasingly try to find different reasons as to why it's happening. We say mental health. Other countries have comparable mental health problems. Most countries have comparable mental health problems, yet none of the, I guess the only factor that is different there is the readily available arsenal that is in circulation amongst the public. As if it is intentional, if it wasn't intentionally included in the Constitution to protect against our freedoms and guard against tyranny, I have not seen anyone rise up in arms for anything other than their jalapeno poppers being under threat during the COVID lockdowns. There is mass tyranny and a direct of our freedoms happening on a daily basis, especially since the post 9/11 universe, where America greatly increased its surveillance state apparatus. You are constantly on guard. You are constantly being surveilled. Police can do whatever the f they want to you. They just haven't, because you're probably somewhat privileged enough to avoid said police scrutiny and therefore think it will never happen to you. One day it will happen to you, but it doesn't really matter because it'll be far too late. Also, once again, the idea that we are going to fight against tyranny when tyranny is already happening on a regular basis, which is also silly when you consider the fact that a drone can just laser you from, hundreds of feet away, and your AR-15 is not going to be able to fight against that. Okay, This guy, they who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. That's really funny and cool, but you're already existing in peaceful slavery and you haven't participated in the dangerous freedom at all. So shut the fuck up. You are a docile little imp. Okay. That's it. You're a servile dog that thinks that he is going to bark when the time comes. The time is here. You've done nothing about it. Your life sucks. You have no goddamn health care. We're giving permanent trillions of dollars to the state of Israel so they can keep babies, okay, at a time when half the country is underwater, the other half of the country is on fire, and yet we can't even seem to harden our infrastructure. The only infrastructure hardening that's happening is to try and a bunch of the people that are coming over the southern border while we lie about them being rapists and drug dealers en masse, even though they are responsible for a much smaller percentage of the per capita than American citizens are. You have been brainwashed into hating your neighbor, hating people that speak differently than you, because it would be far too scary for the powers that be if you actually recognized who is owning you, who is dominating every aspect of your life. But you've done nothing about that. So make no mistake, it's not the left that is harming you, okay? And you most likely are a right-winger already, but you're too embarrassed to be a right-winger and openly come out with that. So you say, oh, I'm an old school liberal. I've heard this a million times over. Dave Rubin used to say that all the time, a classical liberal, right? Back in the 2016 Gamergate era, all these other former Democrats, former progressives would say, we're the real progressives. The progressives have become regressives. Anyway, have fun though. Love you, man. Appreciate you being real. Just don't see the same way as you. I know there are plenty of things that you don't see the same way. I didn't actually give you anything that was like biased in reality. I just told you what is going on. Do you have health care? Do you have free government sponsored health care? Do you have a ladder up your current class position? Do you have a meaningful way to improve your life? No. Do you feel like you're going to be able to retire at a reasonable age, in the same age that your parents might have retired? Do you have a pension? No. And if you do, it's probably because of your labor union, but you know, that's besides the point. You don't have free college. You don't have free education. Nobody's fixing the goddamn potholes. All of the taxes that you pay for go to the police directly. And then, you know, nothing really happens. Nothing really changes. Nothing actually makes your life better. And you get more and more angry. And in that anger, you find yourself in the throes of right-wing sentiment because they at least say, hey, you're right to be angry. You know why you should be angry? Brown people, black people, trans people. Those are the reasons why you should be angry. Yeah, we're just hardening Israel's infrastructure and babies there. Hell yeah. At least they get to have health care, though, because we got their defense covered, you know? By the way, I watched Vipe, your recommendation. Selena Myers, literally Kamala Harris, right down to the insane right-wing tendencies despite being a liberal. An awesome show. Yeah, it's incredible. Armando Iannucci is the GOAT. He's a brilliant writer. He's very funny. Israel, while we were talking, knew it is likely that Israel's first retaliation against Iran will focus on military bases. Oh, I have another really funny J-Post article to show you guys, by the way, about this. If Stalin wasn't great, though, no, I think it was great. I think it was I think it was fun. I mean, it's not a documentary. If you treat it as such, then yes. It was a funny movie. It was a good movie. The thick of it is fantastic. Anyway, In the Loop. Yeah, oh, this is the one. This is my favorite article I've read. Oh my God, we're going to get to that in a second. Let's finish this dumb shit.
Has resulted in a number of that region by Israel that were very much prompted by.
How are you going to say that Stalin isn't great?
You handsome devil. Stick you in a frock and ride your own myself.
I will take that as a compliment.
Yeah, don't. Right. What's a war hero got to do? Get some lubrication round here. I'm smiling, but I am very furious. Jesus Christ. Did Coco Chanel take it on your head?
No, you did not.
Right, well, that's me told. I'm off to represent the entire Red Army at the buffet. You girls enjoy yourself. Modern creators, man. It's not starvation, it's chafing. I'm going to have to report this conversation. Threatening to do harm or obstruct any member of the Presidium in the process of looking at your face.
Anyway,
or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
No.
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people?
Oh,
and the
dude.
answer to that question is yes.
Nice.
Joining us now,
Tim Walz dodges big question on whether Israel has a right to Iran.
Vice presidential nominee, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Governor, great to have you with us on Fox News Sunday.
Great to be with you, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I want to pick up where Alexis left off there in the Middle East, because you were asked in the debate the other night a question about whether or not you would support a preemptive by Israel on Iran. You didn't really get to an answer on that. So this administration continues to call for Israel to moderate its response after being attacked by Iran. Do you now think that Israel has a right to either oil facilities, nuclear facilities? What's your position on that?
Well, look, let's remember how this started, and we're approaching tomorrow a tragic anniversary. Over 1,200 innocent Israelis, 46 Americans took hostages. We have been clear. Israel has the right to defend itself. We've always stood in that position. We need the hostages returned, and we need to bring an end to the humanitarian crisis. But again, the point is it's Iran is at the heart of this, and their proxies that bring disruption throughout the region. That's why being in the Situation Room as Vice President was working with Israelis to repel the attack we saw this week. They tried it back in April, the same thing. And that's the point of being and boxing Iran in. President Trump tore up the nuclear deal that moved Iran closer to a nuclear weapon. He also allowed Iran to down an American aircraft in international airspace with a tweet. And when Iranian missiles fell on U.S. troops, he called it a headache when it was traumatic brain injury. Just to be clear, we have always said we reserve the right to protect American troops, our allies in the region, and that there is consequences for Iran. So what you're seeing right now is the ability to work with our allies, the ability to make sure Iran does not further, and every administration has dealt with them for 45 years. Now it's to make sure, and there has never been a question, Israel has the right to defend itself, and we stand with them to do that. But we need to bring this to a conclusion.
Does that include on Iran's nuclear or oil facilities?
Specific operations will be dealt with at the time, but being very clear on this, Iran, there was consequences for what they do. That's what's happening right now. Israel's right to defend itself is not in question.
Okay, you said in a radio interview that protesters were speaking out, quote, for all the right reasons.
Yeah, hammer his ass, Shannon. You have been, excuse me, you have not been sufficiently pro-Israel, sir. Who actually believes Israel's defending themselves? People that don't have the internet? Yes. This is your guy? Oh, no, he's not my guy. Get the f out of here. He used to be when I thought he was a secret Somali. I am no longer committed that Tim Walz is a secret Somali. How can leftists in America ever say, oh, we'll push the Democrats left when Tim Walz quite possibly the most left-leaning Dem? He's not the most left-leaning Dem, but, you know, he is definitely was a genuine guy. They robbed him of the one thing that he was good at, which is like being a genuine, normal kind of guy. Every time he has to answer these questions alongside whatever like the Democratic Party's position is, he just looks like an empty suit. Here's our guy. Come on, dog. We know your ass don't know how to read. Get the out of here. Look at this acting like he knows how to read, bro. Come on. Who are you fooling? I love that he got the little keeper on to my goat, dude. Optics king.
Do you know that some of them are carrying flags? Some of them are calling for the extermination of the Jewish state. Do you want to clarify your praise for that?
Yeah, clarify it. How dare you say that American students in your state have a right to make demands? How dare you say that they are allowed to be? Come on. They got flags. First of all, who? Like, who has flags? This is a conversation I had with Felix. Like, you can't, can you even get a flag? Like, how would you be able to get one? Okay. Or Hezbollah flags. You know what I mean? People are always like, oh, what about Hezbollah flags? They're waving Hezbollah flags. I see him at protests. I'm like, how the fuck did you guys even get that? I guess Etsy, Amazon, Redbubble. I don't know. How does that shit not get flagged by our security state?
Yeah, I'm certainly not talking about them. I'm talking about the people who understand that we have to end the humanitarian crisis, but they understand we need to return the hostages, bring peace to the region. Look, I will always defend people's rights to First Amendment, but that's not the folks I'm talking about. Those folks are not speaking for the entire group. So I think it's very clear on this. Israel's right, as we've stood with them, has no place in this country. And Vice President.
Yeah, totally cave on the framing. Yeah, those guys are, you're right. All those college students, we should kill them.
Harris has been clear about that. I've been clear about it. But the ability to bring a peaceful solution and understand Israel's right to defend itself, the return of the hostages, and right to live in peace too is something that we're trying to get to. And
I may be alone in this opinion, but I really do think he straight up doesn't believe a word he's saying and is just doing the matchup with Kamala. He's not that stupid. No, I agree. You can tell when he's talking about he cares about versus when he's talking about this. I don't think he gives it, but it doesn't matter because like he's saying the lines, okay, which robs him of any sort of authenticity. And also it's a perfect Democratic position, okay? It's so perfect for the modern Democratic Party because if your likability, your approval came from the fact that you're like a real guy that spoke convincingly on issues that were harming the American population, okay, and now you're just like forced to be this empty suit, this puppet, you are now officially inauthentic doubly, okay? You're doubly inauthentic. You can't even, like, this is why I said Josh Shapiro would be so much more convincing, okay? I don't like the guy, but he 100% would sit there and be like, our commitment to Israel is firm. Your line of questioning here is our commitment to Israel is firm. And the fact that you are asking me, perhaps the first Jewish vice presidential candidate on a ticket with the first black Indian American candidate, how dare you ask this line of questioning to me, a black man? I mean, I'm not Barack Obama. I'm Josh Shapiro. How dare you? And two, that's what he would do. He would cook. Let me be clear. Oh, yeah, Lieberman erasure. That's right. I try to not think about Joe Lieberman ever for my own sanity. You're right.
And that's going to take the leadership that we've seen out of Vice President Harris, being able to hold this coalition together. And again, when Iran launched their missiles this week, she's in the Situation Room. That's different. The people who are in the Situation Room with Donald Trump, like John Kelly as chief of staff, said he shouldn't be there. He's a damaged human being. His own defense secretary said he does not understand the situation, is incapable of dealing with it.
Okay.
So
and
it's about character.
Let's focus on what your position is and the vice president's position as well. I want to talk about abortion too, because this came up at the debate. It's been a winning argument for Democrats on many ballots.
What?
But I want to clear.
Wait, what? Yo, how is this possible? Dude, they really got everything out there, dude. That's the real bipartisan consensus right there. If you want to know, not the bipartisan consensus, sorry, that's the real centrist. God damn, that's incredible. Okay, I kind of want this now. What the? Oh my God. What an incredible flag, dude. Oh my God. Oh my God. I love that. Imagine going to a protest on either side waving that thing. Yeah. Wow. I just want everyone to have a good time flag. I want to know the mindset of the guy who writes a review. Dude, 6 sold, 13 sold. Like, they've sold these flags. There are 19 people out there that have acquired these flags. That's incredible. That is fantastic. The world is, this is healing the world, okay? Every opinion is valid. I can't, oh my God. What an incredible invention.
Clarify what the law is there in Minnesota. Abortion Finder, a website that helps women find access, says abortion is legal throughout pregnancy in Minnesota. There is no ban or limit on abortion in Minnesota based on how far along in a pregnancy you are. You signed the bill that makes it legal through all 9 months. Is that a position you think Democrats should advocate for nationally?
Look.
Ooh, this is a good one. Let's see how this is one he does care about. Let's see how he responds to this.
The vice president and I have been clear. The restoration of Roe versus Wade is what we're asking for.
But that
this is
law
a
goes
woman's
far
right
beyond Roe v. Wade.
To make her own choice. The law is very clear. It does not change that. That was been debunked on every occasion. But
wait,
look, this is a.
But let's agree. What you signed is there's not a single limit through 9 months of pregnancy. Roe had a trimester framework that did have limits through the pregnancy. The Minnesota law does not have that.
This puts the decision with the woman and her healthcare providers. The situation we have is when you don't have the ability of healthcare providers to provide that, that's where you end up with a situation like Amanda.
I hate this, like this line of questioning is obviously super commonplace on Fox News and in most like right-wing places or even like liberal even like liberal outlets that want to present themselves as like nonpartisan or whatever. But the answer is very simple. It's like, yeah, dude, we're not making a restriction on a medical procedure just because some crazy people imagined a false reality where someone is carrying a pregnancy almost to term just to get a fun abortion. Like, that's not real. That's not, you just made that problem up. Okay. Third trimester abortions are infinitely more traumatic because almost every single instance is a pregnancy that the carrier wanted to take the term. Like, they have to do it because of a medical necessity, because it's done out of a medical necessity. There's no, like, you have to get counseling beforehand in order to actually make this decision. You're talking about people who literally have bought like baby clothes and who came up with a name for their child, and now, due to medical complications, have to get this pregnancy terminated. Why would you want to complicate that further, especially when these procedures are not the same as like the 90% of abortions that happen in the first trimester, oftentimes with a simple pill that you take. But beyond that, you're making this already traumatic experience worse for people, because now they might not even be able to get it because the doctors are afraid that they might be legally prosecuted.
Zworsky in Texas, where they are afraid to do what's necessary. This doesn't change anything. It puts the decision back on to the woman, to the physicians, and we know that this is simply something to be brought up to be very clear. Donald Trump's asking for a nationwide abortion ban.
Wait, he
and
has
again,
said that
we don't see this as a winning campaign.
he has said repeatedly that he will not sign a national abortion ban.
Dude, yeah, no, he won't. He's, hey, I think I'm going to claim that you want to kill children after they like are outside of the womb. Also, Donald Trump is very honest, and he's not going to sign an abortion ban, national abortion ban.
And are you calling that just, it's a flat out lie?
Yes, of course. And Senator Vance has in the past said so too. Now, look, they may see this as an election issue. We see it as a right of women to make their own bodily decisions. And that's what the states like my state have the ability to put that in. States like Georgia.
Like, look at the energy. Look at the energy when he's defending like a woman's right to choose versus the energy when he's defending Israel's right to choose nuclear holocaust. Yeah, he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the juice. He doesn't have the sauce. 100%. This is why I'm saying, like, unironically, Josh Shapiro would be a better pick if you were going to go along with this attitude. It's so stupid. Like, he probably wouldn't even be that good at, like, you know, communicating within the permission structure of being able to say that like Palestinians are human, but at least it would be more genuine, right? It makes no sense. I don't understand it. That's why he got owned on the VP debate too. It was such a sad state of affairs. Came out of the gates swinging, being like, listen, Israel has a right to first Iranian nuclear facilities, you know?
Force women to cross the border, and then we have a death of Amber Thurman. So let's be very clear. Trying to cut hairs on an issue on this is not where the American public's at. They want the restoration of Roe versus Wade. Vice President Harris said she would sign it. That's what we'll do when we're elected.
But to be clear, the Minnesota law is
women.
far beyond Roe v. Wade. And about the Amber Thurman case in Georgia, her family has, and it's tragic, she is a young mother who left behind a young son. But what her family has said is it was a complication from an abortion pill that she received, and she didn't get proper care when she went to a Georgia hospital, which had multiple opportunities to intervene there. Her own attorney, the family's attorney.
They're saying L issue. Like, it's not our fault. It's not the Republican Party's fault. L issue. About a person who, by the way, that's crazy.
Attorney says it wasn't the Georgia law, it was the hospitals, what he claims is malpractice, not treating her when she clearly showed up in distress and still had the byproducts of her pregnancy because of that rare complication from the abortion pill. So just to be clear on the Georgia law and how her family and her attorney sees it.
I think they also indicated that had she not go to North Carolina after the debate the other night, that she would have been in a better position. So look, these are the situations you're going.
Wait, I'm confused. It's not, wait, what's the time? Oh, this is from yesterday. Guys, October 6th was a very different day, to be fair, than October 7th, which happens to be the day where Georgia Supreme Court reinstated its abortion ban. Very different time frame. You have to understand. Okay? So even that being in legal limbo in the state of Georgia, that's not the fault of the Republican Party. It's not in legal limbo now. Georgia Supreme Court reinstated the abortion ban, so now it's perfectly set in stone. As someone with an avid pro-lifer family member, they don't believe in people having fun abortions so much as they tend to be medicalists who believe that abortion doctors are eugenicists with a profit motive, convincing women to get abortions for financial and ideological gain. That's it. I'm just addressing the talking points that are commonly given in the media. But that is, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. That's like even more insane. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of people in America that are medicalist. Trump doing the town hall thing with Laura Ingraham.
Like this tweet or this joke or this nickname. Tonight.
All right, let's finish Tim Walz first because I want to watch him.
Going to get into when you take this decision and put it in the hands of politicians like Donald Trump rather than women and their doctors. We trust women, we trust doctors, and we know the outcomes of that are better.
Okay, let's clarify more changes that you signed in Minnesota.
Like, I don't think we should, controversial opinion, I know, but I don't think we should be held captive by like 30% of the electorate that is simply hallucinating positions at this point. Just do normal legislation and move on, and then jiggle some keys in front of them because they're going to shift their attention to that because they're stupid. Okay? The quicker you recognize that, like, beyond the material conditions that create a perfect opportunity for right-wing radicalization, there are a lot of people who are just objectively stupid or completely oblivious to the reality. If you talk to a lot of Trump supporters, you start recognizing that. I mean, Democrats do this too, for sure, right? And some might even say they're more annoying than the Republicans because, like, the Republican, you're like, oh, sweetie. Like, by the end of that conversation, you're like, oh, you just don't know anything. Whereas the Democrat is, like, so self-assured because they've read a New York Times article on the matter, right? And have that, like, arrogance and entitlement and elitist sentiment. Having said that, however, like I said, talk to Republicans. You will understand that, like, a ginormous chunk of their worldview simply stems from just not knowing what's going on. That's it. Literally, they just don't know. They are living in their own bubble. Like, they're just experiencing collective psychosis at any given day, at any given moment. It is crazy. Okay? I mean, we see him in here. We see him in here all the time when a lot of these dudes come into the chat and they do it from a liberal framework sometimes or from a Republican framework as well, where they'll just be like that one guy who was like, oh, well, I used to be a liberal, but, you know, they're mutilating children. It's like, what do you do? What do you do with that? You know? Just, yeah, zero intellectual curiosity, no interest in, like, understanding what's going on at all. Just hallucinating an alternative reality that they're comfortable existing in.
As well, several things were repealed with respect to may have survived an abortion attempt. Language that used to be part of the statute was taken out. We'll put this on the screen so people can see. It used to require medical personnel to, quote, preserve the life and health of the born alive infant. That language has been repealed. It's no longer part of the law. Also struck from the law was language about reporting infants that are born alive, what treatment they receive, and whether they live or die. Why was it important to you to get that protection out of the law?
Minnesota law aligns with every other case of what physicians are required by their ethical responsibilities. And so it changed nothing other than aligning with all care that physicians provide in any circumstance for any medical case. And so it's alignment, as it's always been. It's the cases we've seen in Minnesota, the outcomes we get in our healthcare results are the best in the nation. And all it did was align with existing law.
But you do acknowledge it takes out the language about preserving the life of an infant who was born alive.
Every doctor has an ethical responsibility to provide what they can in each situation. That is the way the law is written now. It's the same for any person who shows up. And again, this is a distraction from the real issue here is women being forced into miscarriages, women being forced to go back home, get sepsis, potentially die, like we saw in cases in Texas, and maternal Mortality rates in Texas have skyrocketed off the charts because of this. This is bad policy. Vice President and I have been very clear on this. We will restore the rights of Roe versus Wade. We will make sure women have their health care decisions. We will not put people's lives at risk because of the geography of where they live, and it will go back to the way it was before Donald Trump gleefully said, we've got the best of both worlds here. Things are wonderful. The states are handling it. It's a beautiful thing. It's not a beautiful thing to see women dying. It's not a beautiful thing to put doctors at risk of being imprisoned.
It is not. It is not to see any single woman suffer. And by the way, there's not a single state, no matter how pro-life or restrictive their laws are, that do not allow a doctor to intercede. That's true in Georgia and Texas as well. I want to turn to the economy. Our latest polling shows that 66% of Americans we talked to said that buying groceries is a, quote, major problem for them. And when we ask people about how they feel about the policies of this administration versus the previous, double the amount of people surveyed say that Biden-Harris policies have hurt them rather than help them and their families economically. That's in stark contrast to how they feel when asked about the Trump administration. So what would a Harris-Walz administration do different than a Biden-Harris administration when it comes to convincing people that the economy is going to get better for them because their perception is that it's not?
Well, we saw a blockbuster jobs report this week. We saw interest rates come down, and we've also seen that Vice President Harris laying out a middle-class agenda. Look, I was in Ohio yesterday, in Cleveland, in Cincinnati, and talking about this. Folks in Ohio know that Donald Trump's policies led to 180,000 manufacturing jobs leaving. They understand when he left office, we had more people unemployed percentage-wise than the Great Depression. What Vice President Harris is talking about is making it more affordable to buy housing, and we've seen it in Minneapolis. When you have more housing stock, we've seen rates go down. We've seen more houses available. Also, the idea of price gouging. 37 states, Republican and Democratic states, have this. Corn is about $4.10 or so a bushel. That's where it's been for many years, up and down. But prices at the grocery stores have skyrocketed. Corporate profits have skyrocketed, and people are paying more. So we talk about
great line of tackling this.
About that. And then I think the fundamental difference here is Donald Trump kept his promise. He cut taxes for the wealthiest. She's talking about making sure things like a child tax credit, $6,000 child tax credit, put more money in people's pocket, making sure that we're able to buy those things, whether it's a crib or it's baby formula, get started. And she's simply asking that we can pay for it by asking those at the top to pay their fair share. This is a fundamental difference in approaches to it, and we're seeing it working. We're seeing economists talk about Donald Trump's proposal to add a 20% sales tax will cost $4,000. Okay. That's everybody. That's not me saying it.
And just to note, that is a tariff, which, by the way, this administration not only kept most of the Trump tariffs, but they added their own as well. So that's got to be part of the conversation. I want to talk a little bit about your record as governor, because it elucidates for people how you may serve as whether you end up being the president. You'll be one heartbeat away. Should your ticket be successful. Wall Street Journal says this after you were chosen to join the ticket. As the Democratic governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz signed into law initiatives allowing immigrants in the country illegally.
So this is so immigration, like I said, these are the two weakest points for the Democrats beyond the economy, right? The economy conversation can be defeated because they have to stand in opposition to the Republicans no matter what on that front. But on immigration and on Israel, it's uniparty. So even if Tim Walz's track record has been decent on this as the governor of Minnesota, he now has to sit there and defend very stupid right-wing reactionary framing on the matter. Let's see how he does.
To apply for driver's licenses, qualify for free tuition at state universities, and enroll in the state's free health care program for low-income residents. Are those not magnets to draw people here, many times on dangerous journeys for themselves? And why should your taxpayers in Minnesota or across the state?
I like the argument. This is one of the grossest ways. It's very Israel coded, but I guess Israel's very America coded, if we're being real. But ultimately, the notion that you're doing this to somehow protect these migrants that are making this journey is so stupid, because your goal is apprehension, detention, and then deportation. You think that's why are you even acting like you care about their well-being? It's such a stupid thing to say. Oh, well, don't you think you're inviting them to your state to make this like treacherous journey that's very dangerous for themselves, which is much better than what I want to do to them, which is kill them? We're killing you for your own good. We're saving you from Hamas. Oops, I upped the talking points.
States pay for those programs.
Well, that's not the vice president's position, but I will say this. Minnesota ranks as a top 5 business state. We rank as a top 3 state for children living, and we're the top state for healthcare access. I would also add this. We also have some of the safest roads. Look, the vice president has made it clear that she has policies that make a difference. Her border policies are the most strongest, the fairest we've seen. It's the
now,
bill
Governor,
that was,
you know a lot of
crafted
people, including your own party, would not join that statement. They're
Great. I'm so glad that the Democratic Party is the right-wing party so that these insanely right-wing losers can just sit there and be like, well, your party doesn't agree with you. I don't care about the results of your good policy in your state. Is an insane way to have this conversation. Like, his argument is literally, look at Minnesota. It's killing it. Okay? You say these policies are bad, and yet these policies implemented in Minnesota have made my state thrive as the governor. Okay? So what the fuck are you chirping about? Maybe I'm right and you're wrong is the argument here, but it doesn't fucking matter to this demon because her job is to basically say, well, now your party doesn't agree with you. What's up with that? This is why it's a major failure on all fronts when these dipshits went right on immigration. I really hate how even for the well-meaning pro-immigration liberals, it's viewed in the context of productivity and skills. God forbid we attract people to build good communities, give back to those communities in general, bring cultural diversity, expands people's horizons. If they're not working, we don't want it. I mean, yeah, but we've already moved beyond like immigrants working as well.
Millions of people who have come here over the last few years that, you know, they see this as an open border.
Well, simply, we have a policy. Donald Trump sees it as a political. Look, James Langford in Oklahoma, the Border Patrol agents, the Wall Street Journal, the Chamber of Commerce, all said pass this legislation. You have to have Congress to authorize 1,500 new border agents. You have to have Congress to authorize DOJ to speed adjudications on these asylum claims. Those are things that would actually work. Donald Trump told us for 4 years he would deal with this. He didn't. He didn't build his wall, 2%. Mexico didn't pay for it. This is a real bill that has bipartisan support. It has the experts on board, and it starts to tackle these issues. And we don't have to resort to demonizing people. We don't have to resort to making up or crafting stories, as Senator Vance said he did. Those things were not happening in Springfield, but it doesn't mean that we can't pass a piece of legislation to strengthen our border. That's what Kamala Harris is talking about.
Well,
She's talking
Governor,
about solving the problem.
That piece of legislation does include the wall that you guys have been so, you've disparaged that. I mean, the vice president has as well. So I don't know if she really intends to move forward with that. But it was negotiated by 3 or 4 senators, and many Republicans came out against it long before President Trump indicated he didn't like it either. Listen, before we go, because I wish that we had a full hour, I want to give you a chance, because you called yourself a knucklehead this week, to talk about some of your misstatements. Yes.
She's just ripping into him so hard. Jesus Christ.
Modified your story or explained that you misspoke about things involving your military rank, weapon in war, your 1995 DUI arrest, using IVF to have your beautiful children, Gus and Hope, being in Hong Kong and China in the summer of 1989 during the Tiananmen events. A lot of people would say they couldn't get away with saying, I'm just too passionate, my grammar's not right, I'm a knucklehead. What do you say to the American people who think, I don't know that I can trust this guy with all those modifications to be the potential commander-in-chief of this country?
Yeah, well, I think they heard me. They heard me the other night speaking passionately about gun violence and misspeaking. And I got to be honest with you, Shannon, I don't think people care whether I used IUI or IVF when we talk about this. What they understand is Donald Trump would resist those things. Look, I speak passionately. I had an entire career, decades before I was in public office. They know, and I'm very proud of my 24 years in service and my record. I have never disparaged someone else in this, but I know that's not what Donald Trump does. They disparage everyone, the personal attacks. I will own up when I misspeak. I will own up when I make a mistake. Let's be very clear. On that debate stage the other night, I asked one very simple question, and Senator Vance would not acknowledge that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. I think they're probably far more concerned with that than my wife and I used IUI to have our child, and that Donald Trump would restrict that. So I think folks know who I am. My constituents here in Minnesota have elected me 8 times. They know where I'm at, and I'm proud to be on the ticket, and we'll deliver just like we have here in Minnesota.
Right. And if we're going to deal in truth, both the president, the former president, and his nominee have said that they are very supportive of IVF. We are glad you have your precious family. We thank you for serving in uniform and your years and decades as a teacher. My mom was too. I know it's really hard work and sometimes very thankless. So,
yeah.